and we're live on Facebook as well. Hello, hello. It is Friday, July 10th. Friday, July 10th, 2020. Hello to the people joining in. Andre, Faucio. Hello, hello. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Ooh, I flipped around the camera by accident. Today's a Q&A session, our Friday weekly Q&A session, so feel free to drop some questions in. I got one right here from Trevor Furman. He's a frequent question asker here. Sorry, I'm just trying to get this set up, the Instagram thing set up. So he asks, tips on playing in the high register with minimal pressure, with the mouthpiece, minimal pressure. Sorry, I can't read today, apparently. That is a good question. It's all about focusing the air for me. It's all about focusing the air stream more specifically, and you do that by focusing the aperture. So things to think about is, I like to think about blowing through a straw, for example. I like to think about focusing that air down, and you do that by changing the vowel sound within your mouth. So as we ascend into the upper register, and I've talked about this before, probably here on a live stream, I definitely talk about it with students a lot, is that the airstream goes from O in the low register, big and wide, O to Ah in the middle register, and then to E in the upper register. So I go E, and so as you say E, and if you do this on your own right now, I know I sound like a crazy person doing this E thing. If you go E and you ascend into the upper register, you're going to end up with being able to get that upper register to start to punch out with only the air, and you don't have to push. So that's what you do. You focus on the air, you focus on not leaping up into the notes, because that leads to like crashing into the ceiling, and we don't want to do that. We don't want to reach for the notes. We want to come and kind of like land on the notes. So I think O-I-E as we go up. You can practice this by doing lip slurs. O-I-E-A-O, right? And as you go higher, you say E. So that's the secret. That's the top trick. You're not going to be able to do it like in 1 second. I'm not going to be able to just tell you this and then all of a sudden like nothing ever, you don't have to do anything else ever. But that's one way. So that's what I do. Focus on the air. Focus on focusing the air. Stop focusing on what not to do. Focus on what to do. So I like to think about it that way. Like, what am I trying to achieve? What am I supposed to be doing right now? And do it like that, rather than worrying about all the bad habits that maybe I'm not, quote unquote, not supposed to be doing, because it's just not super helpful all the time. So there you go. High register with minimal pressure. Focus on the air. So obviously this is a live Q&A, so if you want to drop in your questions, Facebook, I see you guys there, so drop in your questions in the chat or in the comments below, and I'll see them in my chat box here. And I see some questions coming in on Instagram, which is awesome. Hope everybody's having a nice week. It's super hot in Texas. Went for a run. You can look really tired because it's super hot. I see another question here from Andre Perlman. What's the first thing you do in your warm-up or before you warm up? I play a long tone. So I was warming up. I had this virtual studio class just before this with our virtual studio. And what did I do? I spent the first 10 minutes just playing long tones. And so when I do long tones, I just literally play one note for a minute or 2 minutes. And then I do lip bends. So but like ba is my favorite exercise. I'll do it real quick. It sounds like I do that down chromatically into all the false tones. I have a really strong feeling about using those false tones in the lower register to inform our practice, inform our warming up to, and it builds on for range, you know. So it's using those false tones that are below the horn. And you know what, we did the virtual jazz trombone boot camp a couple weeks ago. Hey, Brian Kroc, what's happening? And a number of our guest artists talked about the same exact thing. So it's not just me that's spewing this out into the world. It's a lot of us that are playing the trombone talking about developing those false tones, those notes that are underneath the trombone register. So that's what I like to do first thing. So Andre, that's what I do. Play some long tones, play some lip bends and false tones, and then I start to ascend from there. But always long tones, always long tones, always long tones. That's the name of the game. But if I don't have time to like really go through it, pitch bends, I go straight to pitch bends, because pitch bends and flexibilities are just long tones with motion. At least that's how I view them. So hopefully that answers your question. All right. Excellent. So those are 2 rapid fire questions from Instagram. I'm looking for some questions on Facebook. So if you have some, feel free to drop them in. They should pop up in my chat here. Otherwise, I have a few that I collected. I always collect a few during the week while people are, tuning in and such. So let me pull up the one from this week. This was from you. Well, this is actually an emailed question. So you can always email me a question if you feel like you don't want to post it. It's a really great question, so I wanted to answer it. Let me make it bigger though. Okay, so it's kind of a long question. It's kind of got multiple parts. So as I'm answering this, it might take me a few minutes to get through the whole thing. Feel free to drop in your guys' questions while this is happening. So this is from Per in Sweden. He says, this is prefaced by a few emails talking about articulation before this. He said, and he was responded, well, it's a big topic, of course, because I asked him what exactly. He was like, do you have any suggestions about articulation? I said, well, what exactly are you asking? And he says these. So these are all the questions. He said, I think it's about striking a note, the striking of the note. I agree. He says, you breathe in, and then out, the airstream hits the mouthpiece, the air is past the lips that start to vibrate. Yes. Is it a question of balance? And I think so. I think what he's asking is it about airstream or air or the tongue? And I think it's a combination, like he mentioned, of balance. I think that most of it comes from the air, 90%, and then the tongue just kind of highlights kind of the little spark that makes the note kind of speak. So for me, that means like practicing breath attacks. Like spitting a grain of rice is how people talk about it. So if you can articulate with just breath attacks first, and then move up to adding just a little bit of tongue, it makes the clarity that much better. Because what usually happens when we have bad articulation or not clean articulation is one of 2 things. One is that the air and the tongue are not super synced up, and you get fwa, fwa, fwa. And the second thing that happens is that our slide is not moving fast enough to facilitate the articulation that we're trying to do. So I highly recommend breath attacks, and then just add the tongue back in slightly. Ta, 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 ta. And that's the first part of the balance between the tongue and the air. It's 90%, 80, 90% air, 10% tongue. The tongue is just there to clean it up. The tongue can't be doing the work. Oftentimes I see students that are making the notes happen with their tongue. They use the tongue to make the air accelerate into the upper register, but the air has to be fast to get the note without the tongue. So a lot of times what we'll do is we'll practice like a Rochu or a tune or a ballad or whatever, but just with no tongue at all. And you have to use the air in the vowel sound, like we were talking about a minute ago. So you use the vowel sound, you use the air, you get into that upper register, and you don't rely on the tongue. The tongue, again, is just to give you that little pop, that little snap at the end of the road there. So let me go through the rest of this question. And Nicholas Welp, I see your question here. I'll throw it up on the screen in a minute. I'll just go through the rest of this question. He says, I try to think of a D in my mouth. The tongue spell the letter D or da. Yeah, I say D as well. Some people say dot. Well, I think that the problem with dot is that it has 2 articulations. Da and t can be appropriate in a certain kind of like big band playing setting where you need it to go dot and cut off with everybody in an articulate way. So there's nothing wrong with that, but I wouldn't make it your like general everyday articulation, right? You're going to go ta 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 ta. I think of it as a bell, like hitting a bell. Your tongue is like a hammer hitting a bell. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Your tongue is like a hammer hitting a bell. So what I mean is that you strike it, and like with a hammer, you hit it and it recoils. There's not dot, right, or not dot, and you're cutting it off. You're just hitting it and let it be the length that it is. Da, 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 da. You can do it with just the air too. Right? The air controls how long the note is. It has nothing to do with like dot. So I think that's one way, pair. And there's obviously multiple ways. Hey, Little John, thanks for wanting to come on. I didn't know you were trying to request to be on, but thanks for being here. What's up? Thanks for saying hi. Appreciate you, man. But sorry, I'm in the middle of this question, and I'll lose my train of thought. Okay, so he was talking about dot in the legato style. Says, I practice long notes, 4 bars, and slow tempo to the air run out chromatically. Hope this brings some clarity to my question. Thanks for the answer. Do you have students with poor strikings of the notes, and how do you help them? Yeah, so I think all the things we were just talking about are what I would do. Breath tax, focusing on using the air to create the notes, not the tongue, and not the tongue doesn't create the note. The air creates the note. The tongue just clarifies what's happening there. It clarifies the beginning of the note. It strikes like a hammer hitting a bell. And you just have to practice the different types of articulation. There's legato, there's staccato, and then in jazz we kind of use what I like to refer to, and I'm stealing this from Steve Turre, as staccato, which is in the middle. And if you haven't heard me talk about this before, what I'm talking about is like there's a spectrum of articulation in terms of the length of the note. And so staccato is separated, legato is totally connected, but we want something in the middle that has the front and end of a staccato note, so a little separation, but the middle has that big fat body, and you want it to have that big fat body because you want it to be smooth and connected, but not totally connected, right? So you think about somebody like Curtis or JJ, I feel like they embody that pretty well. So that's the question. So I'm going to switch over here. So Instagram, feel free to drop in more questions. I'm going to switch over. There's a couple of questions here from Facebook, so I'm going to go into those for a sec. Yvonne, he says, hi. Hi, Yvonne. No, there's a question from Nicholas Welp. He says, that's pretty fascinating. I'm not sure when he was... Oh, he must be talking about trombone articulation. So either articulation or the high notes. Says, I became a fan of... Whoops, it disappeared. So I became a fan of yours when I was driving through Denton and caught some tracks of yours in KNTU. Yeah, a couple of years ago when Here and Now came out. It's kind of a funny story. I'll just share while people are sharing their questions. So 2016, I recorded the album Here and Now. And at the end of 2016 started into 2017. Right at the turn of 2017, I launched the first single in the radio campaign for Here and Now. And so that led to, that was in 2017, it's got a lot of play on KNTU, which is what we're saying. And KNTU is the radio station at the University of North Texas. And I had nothing to do with North Texas. I had come to audition once when I was an undergrad, not even to audition, to come to play for the trombone teacher in high school when I was like a junior, like checking out school. So I'd never even come to the school. And so 2017, that comes out. They played the crap out of my record, which was amazing. And that got people who from the jazz department at UNT kind of aware of me. And then the next year, 2018, spring, I was coming to campus for the guest artist series, their lecture series, spring lecture series. And it happened that they also, in that 1 year time span, got approved a new jazz trombone professor line that had not existed before. And they asked me to apply that spring of 2018, and then I got the job, and then I started in the fall of 2018. So it's a kind of a funny transition of events, you know. I never thought I would end up there at North Texas after coming to just for a lesson. I didn't even end up auditioning, but it's been cool. You know, you got to be open to opportunities. Last night I was on a Zoom call, a interview show, whatever you want to call it, live stream with Alexa Tarantino, who's a great alto saxophone player, has a show with jazz.org, Jazz at Lincoln Center. That's their handle, jazz.org. So if you go on Facebook, and you can find that stream from last night. But, you know, the show is called The Well-Rounded Musician, and we were talking about, hi, Anthony Cares 21. Thanks for being here. We were talking about kind of following a path, you know, and working hard and really trying to like delineate where it is you want to go in your career and starting to make, you know, some decisions that allow you to focus in on what's important to you. And we were just talking about trying to, you know, participate in lots of different scenes at the same time and the balance of all those things. And yeah, being a teacher and a performer and running a record label and a nonprofit and everything else is a lot to juggle sometimes, but it's just part of my nature, I guess. And yeah, so anyway, if you're more interested, you could go and check that conversation out. It'll eventually be on my YouTube channel, but it's on my Facebook right now, and it's linked up on the Jazz at Lincoln Center Facebook page. So if you want to go over there and check it out, you can. Again, it's called The Well-Rounded Musician with Alexa Tarantino. So it's Friday, July 10th. Thanks for being here, and feel free to drop in some more questions. Otherwise, there's a couple things I wanted to share while people are doing that. So on YouTube, if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube page yet, I've decided to do a deep dive on jazz education for trombone players. I'm calling it Jazz Trombone Christmas in July. 25 new videos with free PDFs that are happening almost every single day in July. So if you go to my Instagram bio, you can find the link. If you want to just go to my website, you can find the links. Just go to the YouTube page and a new video will show up every single day. They're deep dive. So we're talking about like practical uses of the diminished scale, like how to use the altered scale, how to resolve super specific things. Like it's all details that I think my students like skip over a lot. And, you know, it's like interesting to see. It's also interesting when I start talking about nitty gritty details, how many people jump off the Instagram because people don't want to deal with it, the live stream. It's funny. But to be a great player, you have to have freedom of expression through understanding all of the details of the music. And so you have to deep dive into these things. So anyway, at any rate, if you want to check that out, you can go over to YouTube and find those videos. I'm sure you can also find them on Facebook. I've been posting a lot lately. But other big news, Downbeat announced I won the Rising Star trombone category this week. That was super cool. Super honored to be included. I've been on the list a couple times but never won. So this is cool to win the critics poll. It's nice to just like get your work out there and see that people are checking it out or at least paying attention, which is kind of a nice thing. So if you're here live now, thanks for being here. Feel free to drop in some questions. This is a Q&A, our Friday Q&A. Andres Reyes says, congrats, you grind so hard, you deserve it. Oh, well, thank you. Yes, I try my best to stay on top of things and work hard. I don't really have an off switch, so I just keep on going hard. Let's see, what else did I want to talk about? Yeah, there's in that conversation I had yesterday, just some really good moments. I'll just send you over to that. I'm not going to rehash them here today. Unless we end up on those topics. But again, feel free to drop in a question. The last thing I'll talk about is that we're revamping our marketing products at Outside in Music. So if you've been a person that's been following along, you know that Outside in Music is my record label / media company. Why do I call it a media company? Because we do everything. We don't just, Seamus, you are the man. Voted for me in Downbeat yesterday. That's right. The polls are open now for the readers poll. So I won the Rising Star Critics poll, but now you all have to go and vote for me in the readers poll. No, I'm kidding. You don't have to do anything. But if you want to, those polls are open now if you're a Downbeat reader. Thanks for the reminder, Seamus. Appreciate that. But I was talking about Outside in Music, call it a media company because we really promote doing things like this. Live streams, videos, having not a Shopify presence. I've been thinking about products this morning. Oh, that's right. I launched 2 new t-shirts in my store. So if you want to check those out, one says happy practicing and the other says practice slow, because those are my 2 slogans. And I ordered them for myself, and that's why I created them, really, was because I wanted them. So if you want them, you can go over there. Otherwise, I'll probably be wearing those t-shirts in future episodes or whatever. But anyway, so back to the label and the marketing products. We started revamping our marketing and promotion publicity products to be able to bring totally in-house publicity. So the label now has our own publicity team that you can take advantage of. So if you've been recording this summer or spring, or maybe before all the lockdowns started back in March, if you have a project, get in touch, because we're looking to get more stuff out in 2021. So, we're kind of crossing a lot of different, not genres, but we have actually 4 imprints now. So an imprint is like the company is Outside in Music, and that's our main brand, but we also have Outside in selects, where we're venturing into more of like the lo-fi, jazz, hip hop, jazz hop, whatever they call it, but kind of like instrumental stuff and doing sync licensing and all that for that. That's outside in selects. And we have next level, which is our second. It was our second imprint after the main outside in music one. So there we're taking artists who maybe it's their first or second album and like try to make their dollar go the furthest. So that's kind of what I try to strive for, is creating the value of like for the dollars that you're putting in. It's not cheap to do these things, but we're trying to be less expensive than some of the other people and try to get you more for your money than what other people do, and have a digital first approach. We have that, and then outside in arts, which we're going to be promoting as a label to be able to maybe do some more collegiate projects for more like if professors or people need stuff for like academic reasons, or they want to get their students' music out, or schools that are putting stuff out, we're really trying to open up all of these different ways to try to share more music with people. So if you are interested in any of that, just send me a DM or check out Outside in Music. But anyway, so we're doing that. So we've got our four areas, four imprints of Outside in Music. Doing all different type of stuff. And then we have like a marketing and branding product that we're just starting, which is a consulting product, which is where you work with me and we're going to talk about, your social media. We're going to talk about your marketing. We're going to talk about your monetization, your email strategy, and really get things like tip-top shape as best you can. You might not be able to do them all right away, because sometimes you have to like pay for subscriptions and like get new photos or get a new website, different things like that. So you might not be able to do it all at once, but we can get a plan in place. And so if you haven't gotten on top of that and you want to, now could be a great time to try to revamp some of that stuff. So anyway, all of that stuff is kind of launched now this week on outsideinmusic.com. I redesigned the website this week. So yeah, and we do websites and social media management, if you didn't know. I'm starting to shout it from the mountaintops because people don't know what we do. They just think it's a record label. And we've been working really hard to build out our infrastructure to be able to take on more clients. And we're finally ready. So I'm telling you now. So you guys get the first look if you want to check it out. If not, that's fine. We will. We can only work with so many people. So if you do want to get in touch, get in touch right away. And I saw a question coming in on Facebook. Well, rather, I heard the sound of the Facebook chat. Let's see. From Andres. Hey, if you haven't already addressed this, how do you stay positive when practicing difficult things? In early college, I tied my self-worth with how I sounded. That was super negative. How does one manage their emotions while working on becoming a better jazz musician? That's a really great question, man. Really great question. Sorry that you can't see it on Instagram, but basically, how do you stay positive and not tie your self-worth to how you sound? Those are definitely intertwined. Ooh, that's a tough one, because I think you have to find a way to strike a balance. I'm just gonna put the question on the screen again for anybody that wants to see it again. You have to strike a balance between being hard on yourself, because if you're not hard on yourself, there's no way that you're going to get better. So for me, I hold myself to an impossibly high standard, but I try to give myself the credit for showing up and doing the work. So that's kind of the reframing that I would hope that you can get to, is it's about the process. Even if you don't want to do it, doing it a little bit. There's some stuff that I've been practicing for, when did I figure it? The year I took off, 2010. I wrote it down in 2010, and I'm still practicing it. And it's really hard, and I can't really do it. And there's some stuff I'm thinking about now from 3 or 4 years ago that I'm still practicing and I can't really do on my horn, but that I want to be able to do. And so the more it just sits in there, the more it'll start to be able to come out. Maybe there's a technical limitation that you have that's not the thing, but you need to figure out this other thing before you can do this item that you're finding difficult to practice. I find that to be the case with my students a lot. They're like, well, I can't do this, this, or this. I'm like, well, can you back up a step, zoom out for a second, and can you do the thing that's going to allow you to do that difficult thing? For example, if it's fast, can you play faster than that lick? If not, you got to work on playing fast as well. So it's kind of a multifaceted approach. But in terms of staying positive, you have to give yourself credit for showing up. if your goal is just to get better, you just need to practice every day. It doesn't matter how much you practice every day, because it's frequency over time. It's not always the amount that you put in a day. It's thinking about music. It's thinking about getting better. It's thinking about the problems, problem solving, seeing the problem, putting it away, coming back, putting it away, coming back, putting it away, coming back. It's that over and over and over and over again that allow you to finally, at least for me, finally come to some kind of solution. You figure out what you need to practice, or you figure out what you're missing, or you figure out what you've been doing wrong. And so that's how I stay positive. It's like, man, I'm on the path. I don't know how long it's going to take to get there. I'm just going to, it's like I hold myself to this impossibly high standard, so I know that I'm never going to get there. And, I do the same thing. Andre said something about tying your self-worth to your musicianship. And it's so easy to do. It's so easy to do in this day and age, and also, forever, but as a musician, because your social network, like not online, but in real life, like your social networks are all people you play with. And so it's like inextricably linked together, like your playing and your musicianship and your friend circle and your work colleagues, and everything is interrelated, and you can't escape it. So when you feel like you're not performing well or not supporting the other musicians well, it can be super negative feeling. So for me, I don't know. I think I still tie myself up into that too. It's something to keep on working on for me. Is that like my self is different than my music, My self-worth is different than my music. It's not the same. But it's hard to do, man. Like I've struggled too. So you try to give yourself credit for showing up and doing the work. That's all you can do, And you'll get better. You will get better over time. Sometimes you just need somebody, a teacher or someone, to just maybe point out the, not flaws, but like maybe there's something you're just not noticing that you need to fix before you're going to be able to do, the thing that you want to do. So for me, that's an important realization, something to think about, is seeking out, that mentorship from somebody that can allow you to take it to the next level. And, and it's also like in the practice room, you should sound bad. I know that sounds funny, but like you should sound bad. You should be practicing things you can't do, because if you just go in the practice room and shed what you already know, you're not going to get better. You're just going to spin your wheels. You're just going to like play along with an Ebersold and call it a day. That's playing. That's not practicing, at least to me. So it's like I try to give my students exercises to do that usually revolve around limitation or restriction, saying, let's only do this, let's only do this, now let's do this, let's do this. So practicing all of the different elements that can go into a solo, so that when you go to play a solo, you're totally free to create. That's my goal as a musician, is to create the situation for myself where I can improvise totally freely, meaning I can play whatever my ear hears, and the technique doesn't get in the way. It facilitates the musical ideas and the playing with the other people. So yeah, that's it. That's the vibe, man. Keep up at it. Don't give up. It's a lifelong thing. Like I said, like I get caught up in the same thing sometimes. And when I feel bad about my playing, I feel bad just in general. So I hear you, and it's a constant struggle for all of us, I think. So don't give up. All right, Andres, don't give up, man. Okay, so any other questions, feel free to drop them in about music, about trombone, about improvising, about music business, feel free. Otherwise, we'll probably wrap it up for today. But we are online live on these channels every week at 1 p.m. Eastern Time on Fridays for this show. And I think people are starting to get sick of live streams potentially. So, but yeah, we'll be back next week. Yeah, Andre, I mean, I try to be as honest as I can. It's not just you. We all kind of feel that way. We get tripped up in our own self stuff. So yeah, so check out that interview I did last night with Alexa if you're interested for more. If you want specific jazz stuff to work on, go check out this Jazz Trombone Christmas in July. It's basic stuff, but it's stuff that you might have skipped over and then not even realize that you can't do. So I will hope you can check that out. And I don't see any more questions for today. And so we're going to sign off, and we'll be back next week with another Q&A at 1 p.m. Eastern. So have an amazing weekend. Have a great week next week. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm really trying to grow that over there. If you need marketing help and assistance, please get in touch, because we are launching that business over at Outside in Music. So we'll see you next week.